Sorry to cut you off there, but we do have breaking news here in the weather department. A tornado warning has just been issued for DuPage County. This is now until 9:45. So at the top of the show, I was mentioning that this cell really is of most concern because right along this leading edge, we're starting to see a couple notches that we are very concerned about. And what I mean by notches here is I want to look at the rotation values that we're seeing right along this. So whenever we see notches kind of in a leading edge, sometimes we're able to get these little spin ups that are happening. So we are seeing some pretty decent returns now. It looks like just south of St. Charles near Route 38 and Crest Road, that's where we're seeing the highest value of rotation at this time. So again, for those of you that are in DuPage County, we do have a tornado warning that has just been issued now until 9:45. So we're going to stay with this warning until it expires for you and continue to time it out for you. I want to take a look at the reflectivity that we're seeing. So this cell itself, you see how it's really jagged. So we're getting those notches that I was just mentioning. That's where we're most concerned about seeing those little spin-ups. But this cell stems basically from Dunham Castle down into Geneva, Batavia. But the area of rotation is going to be along this leading edge. So I'm going to zoom in and shout out some communities right along this leading edge, stretching from St. Charles down toward Geneva. For those of you that are near West Chicago, it's time to get to your safe place. If you have a basement, that's going to be your best option. If you do not have a basement, an interior room is going to be your safest place to go away from windows. Even a closet will do. If you don't have that, try to get into a bathroom. You have those extra pipings in the walls, so that can hopefully keep you safe from any missiles or not missiles, but projectiles that could be thrown around because of this potential tornado. Continuing along this line, we have the latest scan now bringing this area into Warrenville, Naperville. You too are included in this tornado warning, again until 9:45. Pulling up the latest radar scans from the rotation values here, highest rotation values along that line of storms is stretching just east of Naperville. For those of you just east of Warrenville, heading toward Wheaton, this is going to be heading your direction very soon. Near South Naperville Road, south of Roosevelt Road, we're seeing signs of rotation. This is moving at about easterly 45 miles per hour. So I would say within the next 5 minutes or so, this is going to be right on top of you. So far, we do not have a confirmed tornado on the ground, but again, we're getting those returns of that rotation that we are very concerned about. Also seeing significant returns from Smith Road in Lakewood down toward West Chicago along Main Street, all the way back down to Joliet Street on the south. This looks like to be a Route 38 as well. So we're going to send it on over to Mark Strell. Mark, what are you seeing?
Well, I'm just looking at some of the rotation that you were just talking about, and again, this kind of see this little broad arc that's going from about Route 36 all the way to that point just east of Naperville, and it's kind of bowing out a little bit to the north and to the northeast. We're continuing to track that. Again, this is a fairly weak rotation at this point, but you can see this rotation tracker off to the west and to the southwest has continued to show this pattern of rotation right along that leading edge of that storm system. So as the storm sweeps into the area, we've seen these high wind gusts, as you mentioned earlier, 50, 60. We've even had some 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So we're starting to see a little bit of rotation again along primarily that leading edge. And you can see that right here, the difference between the green, the lighter rainfall, and these more intense showers and thunderstorms, which are moving in from the west and slightly from the southwest. That's where we're seeing the rotation, also a lot of these higher winds. So whether it is a weak tornado or whether you're seeing winds in excess of 60 or 70 miles per hour, it's still a very dangerous storm system. It's still something you have to take seriously, take shelter, and it's still something that could do a lot of damage in your neighborhood. So
yeah, and I do want to jump in here. So we did just get an update from the Weather Service that says several circulations have shown signs of intensification over DuPage County. So I want to time some of these out for you. Right now, just south of Wheaton, we are seeing some signs of circulation there. So timing that out, again, this is moving easterly at about 45 miles per hour. So for those of you in Lombard, this area of rotation is going to be to you in about 7 minutes, 9 minutes for Villa Park, Elmhurst in around 12 minutes. So you can continue to keep an eye on these arrival times as I read through a few more updates. But the Weather Service is saying that the intensification that we're seeing over DuPage County could produce a tornado at any moment. So, oh, and we did just get an update. There is a confirmed tornado now just south of Wheaton. So with this area of rotation that I was just mentioning, and directors, if you can take this full screen so the viewers can really see the street level that I'm going to zoom in on. So I'm zooming really far into the Wheaton area where we are seeing signs of rotation. Going to give some shout outs here to some roads that we're going to be seeing. So South Naperville Road, just north of Butterfield Road. This is a sign of rotation. So for those of you in this area, you're going to want to get to your safe space. Again, basements, this is now a confirmed tornado just south of Wheaton that is coming straight from the National Weather Service. And also, with this same storm, we just had a measured wind gust mark of 87 miles per hour. So not only are we dealing with a now confirmed tornado on the ground from this, but the winds in general coming out of the cell are leading to damaging wind gusts too.
Yeah, and that 87 mile per hour wind gust was reported just about 3 miles north of Aurora there in King County. Let me zoom in a little closer. I want to show you again some of these winds that we're talking about here. And again, you pinpointed the location right along Butterfield Road, kind of their Arboretum Estates. I'm just going to put a big broad circle around this area. You can see the reds, these little red squares here indicate winds moving away from the radar site, the green towards the radar site. And you can see how close these are right in here, right in this area right here. And that's the area that we're most concerned about right now. That's what we're keeping our eyes on. That's where we have the confirmed tornado from the National Weather Service. So this is the area. We're taking it right down to the street level here. Basically, just north of Valley View, Butterfield, this whole area right here is showing these very close couplets, the greens and the reds coming together, showing that intense rotation, or that rotation that has prompted the National Weather Service to issue a tornado warning. They now say that the tornado is heading for Glen Ellen and Lyle.
So I'm going to go ahead and put a track on this area of rotation that we were just talking about. So again, this is heading toward Lombard, Glen Ellen as well. We're going to stretch this out. It's moving at about 40 to 45 miles per hour. So this area of rotation, this is now where we have a confirmed tornado. It's moving east northeasterly at about 45 miles per hour. So Glen Ellen, this is only about 4 minutes from you. If you have not already, get to your safe space, call your friends, your family, if you know that they are in the Glen Ellen area. This also includes Lombard. This is heading your direction too. So right now, this area of circulation, if we zoom way in, I'm going to shout out some street levels. And if once again, we could take this full screen so all of the viewers could really get a handle on exactly where this is. We're shouting out Sheehan Ave all the way down Route 53 to Glen Park Road, and then over toward the east to 355. This is the area of most concern, and this is the most likely area that we are seeing that tornado at this time. Zooming back out, I want to get a check of the reflectivity, the radar, and what we're seeing here, because again, it's really the leading edge that we're most concerned about. So we're getting these little notches here. You can come back out to me as well, so I'm able to point some things out. These little notches that we're seeing here on the leading edge of these storms, that's what we're most concerned about. That's where we're seeing this area of rotation coming in. Zooming back in, I want one more time to give the latest update that we're getting here, because this continues to move, obviously. It's moving northeasterly at about 45 miles per hour. So the latest look looks to be from Arbor Lane and then over eastward toward 355. Mark, do you have any updates?
We have the thunderstorm warning, severe thunderstorm warning, that continues for Kendall County as well. And I'm just looking back a little further back at some of the history on this. This is the rotation tracker, and we have seen rotation out of these storm systems. And again, it's kind of exactly what you're talking about. It's that leading edge there where we have these little nodules, these little rotations on that leading edge with the very windy conditions and with this pretty intense thunderstorm. And you can see the rotation tracker takes us all the way back through Sugar Grove, where we had reports of 50, 60, even some 70 mile per hour wind gusts in that general vicinity, all the way through Aurora. You can see those red areas. And then right here, you can see the tornado warning. This is the red box, which goes all the way up towards O'Hare, towards Elmhurst, Carroll Stream, Bloomingdale. But as you mentioned, Emily, this is really the area that I'm zooming into, that you've done a great job of taking it right down to the street level, showing exactly the neighborhoods that need to be concerned. These are the areas you need to be taking your safe place at, at this moment.
So once again, if you are just joining us, for those of you in DuPage County, you do have an active tornado warning. This is now a confirmed tornado on the ground. ground. It's been spotted by spotters and is heading toward Glen Ellen and Lyle. For those of you that are near 355, that's where our latest scans are putting this rotation here, and it's crossing Route 38. It's heading up toward Lombard, over toward Elmhurst, North Lake. So these storms originally were taking a very easterly track, and clearly from this too, we're getting a lot of lightning strikes that you're seeing here from this live view. Can you guys tell me where we're at with the Lakefield? Winfield. Okay, so this is a live view now of what it's looking like outside. We are seeing some lightning, but unfortunately, when we're talking about this tornado right now, it's going to be rain wrapped, because I'm going to once again kind of zoom things back out and see what the radar looks like. We have torrential downpours with this. So that, plus it being nighttime, you're not going to be able to see that tornado coming. So again, for those of you that are in DuPage County, for those of you within this polygon, so all the way up toward O'Hare, back toward Roselle, down toward Downers Grove, you now have a tornado warning. This remains in effect until 9:45. The tornado currently appears to be just south of Lombard, where we're seeing this return. Again, this was a confirmed tornado, so of course there's a little more urgency with this now. It's not just what we're seeing on radar. I am getting an update that the tornado debris signature has dissipated, so let's take a look at that. And I'm going to zoom this out here, and I'll explain what I'm looking at too. So I'm going to set this in motion, and what we're going to be looking for. I know this looks crazy. There's lots of colors going on. But in the last few scans, do you see how there's a little bit of a brighter return if we stop this right here? So this is what I'm concerned about. Zooming in south of Lombard, exactly where we were seeing that rotation. I know it's kind of hard to differentiate the colors, but where we're seeing this orange, this is actually debris that's being lofted up into this tornado. So it looks like this is at least getting a little bit weaker, so that's a wonderful sign. That means that potentially this thing is weakening just a little bit. Putting on the rotation once again, we still have very clear evidence that there is detection there of rotation. Coming in from the Weather Service from DuPage Airport, looks like wind gusts as high as about 53 miles per hour. So that is outside of the tornado itself, of course. So the leading edge of these storms, I'm going to zoom way back out because it's easier to get back in that way. The leading edge of these storms, so anywhere from Roselle down toward Wheaton, down toward Naperville, Bolingbrook, down toward Romeoville, anywhere along this line, we could be experiencing wind gusts as high as about 60 miles per hour. Mark.
Yeah, and thankfully you showed where the debris signature was. Radar doing a very good job of picking up actual debris, trash, shingles, whatever may be picked up by the tornado, and showing exactly, pinpointing exactly where that was. So the National Weather Service has seen some debris damage on radar. Fortunately, that has weakened, as you've pointed out. But this storm system still has the potential to continue on in the same trajectory and continues to be a threat that it could pose more tornadoes as we go through the next several minutes, or perhaps the next half hour, 45 minutes, hour or so. So we're going to continue to track this as we go through the rest of this evening.
Yes, so we were just talking about Lombard and how it was heading your way in Glen Ellen. Fortunately, we've seen the rotation returns a little bit less than we have, but now we have a new area of concern looking to be right around Bloomingdale. So again, here's our leading edge, and you see how jagged it is? That's what we don't want to see. When we have an approaching severe thunderstorm, this is giving us an idea that we could be seeing some rotations right along this line. So looking at the rotation, we have strong rotation now. It looks like from Bloomingdale back toward Bartlett. So really anywhere along this line, for those of you right along Route 20, this is just south of Route 20 for Bartlett, traveling down US Highway 20 toward Bloomingdale, all along this route is where we're seeing the best signs of rotation at this time. I want to take a look at the storm relative velocity. And unfortunately, in a lot of situations like this where we have kind of that jagged line of storms, it is hard to pick out exactly where that rotation is. So our rotation detector does a really good job at defining that for us. Again, just south of Route 20 in Bartlett, we do have signs of rotation leading down toward Bloomingdale. This is now, it appears to be about as strong as the rotation that we were talking about with the tornado that we we knew was on the ground heading toward Glen Ellen and Lombard not too long ago. So I am concerned that we could potentially be seeing a tornado somewhere along this line, again, following Route 20 from Bartlett down to Bloomingdale. So big picture here, this is what we're working with. We have a tornado warning in the northeastern section of DuPage County until about 9:45. But as you can see, we also have this warning that's been expanded into Cook County, so northern Cook County down into central Cook County. This does include the city of Chicago. This looks like it's going to be in effect now until about 10 p.m. Looking at the radar, I do want to watch this go through a couple scans here because I just want to get the movement of it correct. So I'm going to go ahead and put a track on this, tracking it into the city of Chicago to see just how far away it looks like this could be for us. So on its current track, again, moving about east-northeasterly at the current pace, about 40 to 45 miles per hour, we're looking at this moving into the city of Chicago right around 33 minutes from now. So right now it's 9:18. So say pretty close to 9:45 or 9:50, we're likely going to have this storm approaching the Chicago area. Zooming back in specifically to that tornado warned area, I'm going to turn off the radar now so we can see that red box very clearly. Anywhere from Roselle down to Bloomingdale, Addison, Elmhurst, Utopia, you are all in this tornado warning now until 9:45. Getting a check of that rotation, unfortunately, we're really seeing this expanding along that leading edge. So following Route 20, that's where we're seeing some of the highest returns. At this point, it looks to be, looks like almost Route 19 now, so East Irving Park Road. If you follow that from Streamwood down to Roselle, that's where we're seeing our highest returns. Can you guys tell me where this feed is from? Oak Brook. Okay, so this is a live view from Oak Brook. Clearly seeing some heavy rain coming down. As far as the lightning goes, we are certainly seeing some of that lightning. Zooming things out and looking at all the lightning trackers, you can see there's lots of lightning that's associated with this too. So the strongest cell at this point really does appear to be the cell that's moving throughout DuPage County. Again, we do have that tornado warning mark in effect until 9:45.
Yeah, Emily, I'm going to briefly I want to show you what Futurecast looks like, and obviously this is kind of based off of what's going on right now, but it doesn't always initialize exactly as the storms are, but it does give you the general trend. I'm just going to kind of drag this out and show you that these storms will be passing through over the next couple of hours, and the rest of the night will look better. We do have some improvement, which, Emily, is good news. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. Here we are in Illinois. This is the third night in the row that we've had tornadoes or tornadic activity, confirmed tornadoes. This really has to set an all-time record. And you were just talking about this not that long ago. You put together a special report talking about how Illinois is becoming ground zero for tornadoes.
Yeah, you know, so when you think of Tornado Alley, you're not typically thinking about Illinois. You're thinking of places down in like Kansas and Oklahoma. Well, you know, it looks like patterns are really showing that we're seeing an uptick in tornadoes. And as of, I believe, on Wednesday, so we had 11 confirmed tornadoes on Wednesday, and we're just adding to that number. And so far this year, we are over 100 now. So again, we do have a tornado warning that's in effect now for northeastern DuPage County. The areas of most concern really going to be right along this leading edge. So zooming in, because I want to really shout out some communities right along this leading edge. That's where we're seeing these brief little spin-ups from Lombard over towards Swift. This is heading toward Addison momentarily. Within a couple minutes, this is going to be there. And it looks like even without any tornadoes, the Weather Service is saying pockets of winds up to 70 miles per hour are still going to be expected. Let's get a check of the rotation detector now and see where some of those highest returns are. Now it looks like we could be even seeing some stronger returns just south of Schaumburg, and that's outside of the tornado warning. So while that's not even necessarily in the tornado warning, the Weather Service said at this point they don't plan on expanding this unless they get a confirmed tornado report or a really strong indication that we do have some of that rotation. But regardless, that confirmed tornado that was on the ground heading toward Glen Ellen not too long ago, the rotation returns looked like this one does here. So let's compare that to the velocity. You see this jagged edge here? We're going to get some circulations going right along that. So that's likely why we're seeing those heavier or those stronger returns as far as rotation goes just south of Schaumburg. So for those of you in Schaumburg, this is, even though you're not in that tornado tornado warning. If I were you, if your family was my family, I would tell you to get to the lowest level of your home. I would say go to your basement and into your room. Get away from those windows. While these tornadoes that spawn up tonight, they're going to be very different from the tornadoes that we were seeing, images of, videos of a couple days ago. So the environment that we have today, it's not nearly conducive of what we had the other day. So we're not going to see these large tornadoes, but those brief little spin-ups, and even with those, we could be talking about wind speeds as high as 85, 90 miles per hour, and that's going to be enough to do damage. Mark?
Yeah, death, destruction, injury, all certainly possible. And, accompanying these tornadoes, again, we've been talking about this all night long. We've had these very large straight line winds, and the latest from the National Weather Service reporting thunderstorm damage, 70 mile per hour observed winds for Cook County, DuPage County. This has been the case, 70 mile per hour winds across the city, northern Cook County, and that's going to be the case here for the duration until this storm system goes through. This is a look at the rotation detector, and Emily, you were talking a little bit about some of that rotation being outside of that box, and you can see here that the red tornado warning box up, and when you get up towards south of Schaumburg and you get up towards the Northwest Expressway and around the tri-state, some of these areas still outside of the warning box, but nonetheless, these are still all very powerful storm systems that are going to continue to be with us here as we go through the evening.
Yes, so that live view, Mark, that we're seeing on the left side of the screen, that's the view from O'Hare. And now I want to show you what we're seeing approaching O'Hare. Again, this is just outside of that tornado warning, but at this point, I'm really not concerned about the boundaries of the tornado warning because this is telling a different story. So right along that leading edge of the storms here, this is approaching East Devon Avenue. This is in Elk Grove. We're now seeing some signs of rotation. So again, for those of you in Elk Grove, it's time to get to your safe space. Yes, you are not absolutely inside the box of that tornado warning, but regardless, we are seeing signs of rotation. And this area of rotation stretches from East Devon Avenue. This is in Elk Grove, stretching to just southwest of O'Hare. And you're seeing the view from O'Hare, and we are seeing every now and again some of those lightning strikes. So if I put on the lightning tracker, we certainly have some lightning in the region, but at this point, of course, we are so much more concerned about the area of rotation, which is now stretching from Elk Grove to the southwest side of O'Hare, and then down toward North Lake, Franklin Park. If we zoom out, there's still going to be other areas that we are concerned about too. So Bloomingdale, we were talking about you really not too long ago, and now it appears we're seeing another area of rotation that's developing within this main cell. And do you see all of this red here? So torrential downpours are coming down all around those rotations. So if indeed we do have a spin-up tornado, it's going to be rain wrapped. You're not going to be able to see it. So for those of you that, if you look outside right now and you are in DuPage County or even in Cook County, you see that it's raining very hard, you should get to your safe space just because that leading edge right here is showing signs of rotation. So for those of you in Bloomingdale, Carroll Stream, Geneva, Wheaton, Foxcroft, it looks like we are seeing those heavy downpours, this severe storm moving through. Outside of that tornado activity, we're still seeing winds coming out of this thing at about 60 to 70 miles per hour. That's going to be possible. Weather Service saying that the current circulations that they're most concerned about look to be moving toward O'Hare. Those were the ones that I was just mentioning in Elk Grove Village. There's another circulation near Berkeley, and it appears to be moving into the western suburbs, including Melrose Park, Bellwood, River Grove, River Forest, and nearby areas there. So I'm going to zoom things way out, give you the big picture here of what's taking place and taking the radar off. That tornado warning, that has officially expired, but in DuPage County, near Lombard, near Glen Ellen, about 10 to 15 minutes ago, there was a confirmed tornado along that leading edge of these storms. So yes, we only have a severe thunderstorm warning now, and I say only because this is still, that was a joke almost, I shouldn't joke about it, but we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect in place of that tornado warning, but I still want you to take this very, very seriously here. We will, it looks like we're going to continue to track this, of course, for you as it goes into Cook County, and then off toward the lake. And for those of you that are in Lake County, this may try and clip the far southeastern portion, but zooming things in one more time, I really want to get a check of those rotations along that leading edge. Fortunately, I'm seeing this area of red and orange shrinking a little bit. So that's some good thing, some good signs there that we're seeing this weakening just a little bit. But as far as rotation goes, I mean, this right along that leading edge, we're still seeing it. So right along 90, just south of 90, on the north side of Schaumburg, this is crossing 58. So between 58 and 90, that's where we're seeing the highest returns of that rotation. So for those of you in this area, the north side of Schaumburg, for those of you in Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, this storm as a whole, even in Elk Grove, we're now seeing those signs of rotation. So this storm itself is going to continue to make its way to the east northeast. Once again, I am going to zoom way out and get a track on this for you. So pulling the worst part of the storm out, I know I'm going to take this out over the lake here, but I want to get it going to about 45 miles per hour to get some of those arrival times. So Rosemont, about 6 minutes from now. Des Plaines, 8 minutes. Park Ridge, 9 minutes from you. Northfield, about 17 minutes. Deerfield, you are looking at about 20 minutes from now, this storm approaching your area. Keep in mind that tornado warning at this point, it has been expired. However, the severe thunderstorm warnings, Mark, they are still tagged with tornado possible. So they're still leaving that room that we could be seeing those rotations and those brief spin-ups right along that leading edge. Yeah, and that's why we're still on the air here, bringing you the very latest information. Let me take you down to the southern limit of the storm system, which is just a little bit south of us. There's still some severe thunderstorm warnings. This is the very broad picture. Again, this is well south of Streeter towards Pontiac, so there's still quite a bit of activity. And all along, we were talking about this kind of jagged edge, this leading jagged edge where there's been rotation. You can kind of see a similar environment taking you all the way back here into Chicago. Now, if you're flying in or out of O'Hare, I don't have a confirmation that there is a ground stop, but in a situation like this, with these high winds and with the tornado warning nearby, it would be standard procedure in most cases to do so. So if you are catching a flight in or out, you can imagine things are going to be backed up there as well tonight. But again, this is going to continue to move off to the east, slightly to the northeast as well. So here in Chicago, you can see most of the area is under this green, mostly light or moderate rainfall. So you can expect to see your environment change pretty radically here coming up in the next several minutes, moving to basically some high winds. Even if we don't have any further tornado reports, we're still going to have some high winds. We're still going to have some torrential downpours. This is on top of an environment that's already been saturated quite a bit over the last several days. So we're still going to have some ponding on streets, some minor flooding, and this is a situation that we're going to continue to track as this entire mass that you can see the bright reds, the oranges are moving here into the city of Chicago. Yes. So recapping what we're seeing here, we now no longer have that tornado warning for northeastern DuPage County. But with that said, we are still seeing signs of rotation along the leading edge. The live picture that you're seeing now, that is from O'Hare, and this is now kind of barreling down on O'Hare. We have been seeing signs of rotation right along that, but currently the severe thunderstorm itself stretches from northwestern Cook County down through DuPage County into Wheaton, and then down toward, it looks to be the very southeastern portion of DuPage County, and then pushing into south central Cook County as well. For those of you that are in northern Will County, the worst of the storm is past you now. So it's continuing to make its way off toward the north and the east. Let's zoom in now and get a check. Oh, and it looks like we just expanded this warning now into southeastern Lake County. So that's wonderful news. That's until 10:15. And the reason I say that's wonderful news is because we're continuing to see those circulations right along that leading edge. So this is moving at about 45 miles per hour. I will track that for you now up into Lake County. So this leading edge here, it's moving again about 45. So let's get that on there. So Rolling Meadows, this is only about 4 minutes from you, 7 minutes from Prospect Heights. Buffalo Grove coming your way in about 10 minutes. So right now it's 9:31. So at 9:40, you're really going to start to hear those winds. You're going to see, you know, probably really hear the thunder and lightning as well as those heavy downpours too. So go ahead and let's take this full screen one more time so everybody can kind of see their towns that are getting a shout out here. And I'm also going to zoom in while everybody's taking a look at those arrival times. And I want to get a check of that leading edge on what we're seeing as far as rotation goes. So it's really the same area that we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to take off those arrival times, and if you guys could come back out to me here so we can point out some things. It looks like we are seeing some of the strongest rotation now right between Williamsburg and Arlington Heights. So the latest scan bringing this right into Arlington Heights. So anywhere from 83 up toward 12, and then following, what road is this? Let me zoom this in and get a check what road this is. Okay, so Northwest Highway. So right along Northwest Highway, cutting through Arlington Heights, that is where we're seeing some of the strongest rotation at this time. Again, we do not have a tornado warning on this particular area, but regardless, you know, we were seeing returns like this on our rotation detector. In fact, even less than this when we were under a tornado warning for northeastern DuPage County, and there was a confirmed tornado that was heading toward Lombard and Glen Ellen. So the threat of damaging winds is showing signs of developing over northwest Cook County now. So this portion of the line, it looks like it's surging to the northeast at about 40 to 45 miles per hour. So as far as winds go, we could be experiencing winds heading into Cook County now at about 40 miles, I should say, and about 60 miles per hour is what we're going to be dealing with as far as those winds coming into northern Cook County. Mark.
Yeah, and that whole line is moving into Cook County at about 40 miles per hour. Windy City Smokeout, one of the big events that's going on this weekend, going on this evening, has been evacuated. You can imagine a lot of people exposed out there this evening to the wind and weather that is coming our way. This is a look at storm winds. Again, the red indicating winds blowing away from the radar site, the green going towards. And what I want to do is just kind of zoom in. You can see some of the bright areas, the red, the fuchsia areas there. And I just want to kind of sample some of those winds that are out there right now. And we've seen some winds, again, up to 60 miles per hour. Here in Schaumburg, we're sampling some winds of 51 miles per hour. There's some for 45, 46. This is where the core of some very high winds are. And then let's take you down a little further to the south, down towards Midway, where the winds are still gusting at over 40 miles per hour. So again, even in spite of the fact we do not currently have a tornado warning at this point, high winds can do an incredible amount of damage. We've seen that. We've seen it throughout the evening, and can be just as dangerous as well. So this is really going to be one of the primary threats, along with the possibility of those tornadoes spinning right back up again along that leading edge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double-edged threat that we're dealing with here at the moment.
Yes. So the severe thunderstorm warnings that continue to be issued for our area, the Weather Service has an option of putting a certain tag in there, and all of these have been tagged as tornado possible. So that just lets you know that even though we don't have a tornado warning right now, while those signatures aren't strong enough to trigger that tornado warning, conditions are still there, and there are some signs of weak rotation that, you know, we're going to see potentially some brief spin-ups along this line. We're getting really incredible images out of O'Hare right there. You can see lots of lightning as this thing approaches, and it's basically just about overhead now. So from this live feed, we're really going to start to see heavy, heavy rain probably within the next less than probably 2 to 4 minutes, I would assume, that we're going to start to see that heavy rain coming down. So as far as the watches, warnings go, we have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for northeastern Illinois through 10 p.m. We have severe thunderstorm warnings now in effect for southeastern Lake County. That's until 10:15. We have northern and central Cook County under that severe thunderstorm warning until 10 p.m. And then for those of you that are in eastern DuPage County, where we previously had that tornado warning and confirmed tornado on the ground, you now have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 9:45. Right now it's 9:36, so this is going to be moving out of your area shortly. Of course, we still have, it looks like, some thunderstorms taking place across the south suburbs too. I don't want you to feel left out. These particularly right now, they are not nearly as strong as the cell that we are experiencing in the north and northwest suburbs heading toward the O'Hare area. But for those of you from Saratoga down to Morris, over toward Gardner and Dwight, it looks like across Grundy County you are experiencing heavy, heavy downpours as far as some lightning and thunder too. Let's take a look at rotation though. We're seeing some very, very weak rotations with some of those showers and storms moving through Grundy County. At this point, that is not the area that we're most concerned about, because take a look at, let's just compare them. So in Grundy County, you can see it's a very, very faint green. It's almost hard to even pick up. But once you get up into northern Cook County and then also into portions of DuPage County, that's where we're still seeing these very consistent returns right along that leading edge. So the heaviest of rain right now is heading into Arlington Heights. It's already in southern Arlington Heights. This is moving to the north and the east. And typically when we're dealing with storms like this one, when you have these really jagged edges, it's pretty easy to get those winds kind of swirling around, and that's exactly what's taking place. So we're seeing those brief spin-ups being possible. Previously this evening, we did have a confirmed tornado in portions of DuPage County that was near Lombard, heading toward Glen Ellen, and then fortunately, we saw the debris ball really kind of falling apart. So that was giving us the signal that we're no longer seeing those debris being lofted up into the air, but we did have a spotter reporting that out of DuPage County earlier. Currently, we do not have a tornado warning in effect, but even with this severe thunderstorm rolling through, those jagged edges, that's really what I'm most concerned about. Looking from O'Hare once again, it is a really good light show that we're seeing as this is moving into the city and toward O'Hare. This is going to continue again to move to the north and the east at about 45 miles per hour. So I'm going to put a track on what seems to be the strongest part of the storm, and especially where we're seeing some of those higher returns of rotation. And we're going to track this off toward the north and the east. For those of you in Highland Park, this is going to be heading your way shortly. In about 8 minutes from now, this area of rotation is going to be right overhead. So if that holds together, we could potentially be seeing some brief spin-up tornadoes right along that leading edge. This also goes for those of you that are in Highwood about 8 minutes from now, Lake Forest 12 minutes from now. The heaviest of rain at this point along with this storm, and also where we're seeing those really strong winds. We just had Mark, he was showing you how strong some of the winds are within this cell. So we're seeing 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts coming out of this. This is all going to continue to make its way to the north and the east. So from Palatine down toward Norma, back toward Roselle, over toward O'Hare, and then a thin little line following 294 from Elmwood Park down toward Westmont and then over toward Midway. So even at Midway, we're seeing a really nice light show at this point. As far as rotations go, we're seeing some very weak rotations on the south side of Chicago over toward Midway. Those at this point don't really seem to be lining up with this leading edge. So with that, when it doesn't line up very nicely with the leading edge and you're seeing rotation way over here in just these plain old showers, some light rain coming down, that's when you know you can kind of disregard this. So we don't have to pay attention to this one right now anyway, that is just east of Midway, because it's not matching up with the reflectivity. So let's take a look once again at the reflectivity over northern Cook County. So that leading edge that's moving through the O'Hare area toward Norma, toward Palatine, at least on the east side of Palatine, it looks like we're going to continue to see that area of rotation, and really it's not weakening, Mark. It's still there. It looks like it's right along a line from Palatine over toward the west side of Northbrook down to the Grove. And also this crosses Route 83, 294. So anybody in this area, while you're not actually in a tornado warning, if your family was my family, I would tell you to go to the basement, get to the interior room. This isn't something that we want to just take lightly, right?
Well, that is a good litmus test coming from you, ma'am. You know what? We do have reports of 58 mile per hour winds that have gusted at O'Hare. They're now, I mentioned before, typically you'd see a ground stop at O'Hare. We do have confirmation that that is the case. So again, flying in or out, I have family members flying in this evening. That is going to be a problem here this evening. Even though it is late of hour, still O'Hare, as you know, never really shuts down. We have reports of 3-inch tree limbs down in Naperville. I've got another report of a 4-inch diameter tree limb down in Naperville as well. And talking with one of my storm spotters, Tom from Lombard, he says trees have been snapped down there as well. All right, the map I'm showing you right here, this is a hail tracker, and we have seen some hail here. These are the pink areas, mostly associated with the storm system back when it was in kind of the Fox Valley from Aurora back to around Yorkville and just north of the Fox River Valley. We haven't seen a whole lot of reports of hail, a couple here on the south side, but so far this storm that has brought us the high winds, the heavy rains, basically the tornado is kind of devoid of hail at this point, which is good news. You know, you mentioned also Lake County being good news that they're under a warning. It is good news because obviously the people there need to take heed, but also it's indicating us kind of a little bit of a time frame that after 10 o'clock that this storm system should be out over the lake. And kind of out of our hair after 10 o'clock, at least for the North Shore.
Yeah, and temperatures out there right now, we're still in the upper 70s, low 80s in some locations. Dew points are high. I'm sure you felt that earlier today. We have that humidity, so we have the heat, the humidity, that instability that we're dealing with. So even after dark, typically you see storms dying out fairly quickly. That wasn't the case today because it is still so warm out there. The feed out of O'Hare looking very rainy now at the point. We are seeing some of the rain coming down now, and really a great light show that we're seeing at this point. So fortunately, the area of rotation is now past O'Hare. Let's take a look at that now. For those of you that are in northern Cook County, this now appears to be stretching from just kind of peppered throughout the Evanston area. But if we compare that to the radar, again, the leading edge isn't right where we're seeing a lot of those little returns showing up. So for those of you that are in Evanston, while we're seeing some areas of weak rotation showing up, I'm really not too concerned about those being, a tornado on the ground, anything like that. However, I am seeing some higher returns now at the far northern extent of Cook County leading into southern Lake County from Northbrook back toward Buffalo Grove. This is right along Route 68 crossing 294. That's where we're seeing some of these higher signs of rotation. The latest scan now brings this beginning to go northward into Lake County. So for those of you near Ravinia, this is going to be knocking on your doorstep within the next couple of minutes. Again, this storm itself is moving at about 45 miles per hour. So you're already seeing that light rain moving in. The heavy stuff, that's down toward Northbrook Park, appears to be close to Northfield Woods. So again, we're seeing those really heavy downpours too. Now our main concern, and the reason that we're really sticking with this, is even though we're not seeing a tornado warning in effect, we had a confirmed tornado in DuPage County earlier tonight. So right around 9:15, I believe that came out, that we were seeing a confirmed tornado in DuPage County. That has since fizzled out. But with that said, this leading edge, what we really need to pay attention to are all these little notches that you see here, because that gets the wind rotating a little bit. So if we take a look at the rotation detector, fortunately for those of you in Morton Grove, we're not seeing anything as far as rotation goes, but you are going to really start to see those really heavy downpours. You're already seeing the lightning, hearing the thunder, but the heavy stuff, that's going to be heading your direction very soon. Again, focusing on the rotation. Right now, it is in northern Cook County moving into southern Lake County. I want to zoom things way out. We're going to put the radar back on there, and I want to talk about what we're seeing here. So right now, we still have storms moving throughout our far south suburbs. For those of you in southern Kendall County, Grundy County, we're seeing some heavy downpours. For those of you in Morris, you're probably seeing the lightning, hearing the thunder. What you're experiencing, these are not severe thunderstorms. We're not seeing the wind that's high enough to meet that criteria, which is 60 miles per hour. It also looks like we could be seeing damaging winds as high as 60 miles per hour in Lake County. So this northern cell that we've really been focusing on, that's where most concern is at this point. We do have Tia that is going to be going live for us. Hi, Tia.
Hi, Emily. Yeah, we are live in Schaumburg right now. We were actually on a story regarding the fire, and we're still at the reunification center. We were going to try and drive over to Winfield, which is about a 25-mile ride, but we couldn't make it. And the reason being the rain really kicked up, and the wind certainly did too. It has subsided to some extent right now, but it was really scary for a few minutes there. And we actually sent in video to show you the conditions in which we encounter. So as of right now, a lot of lightning, but at one point the trees were bending and the rain was just so much that we couldn't even see out of the car's windows. So we decided to move our car in the middle of this parking lot to get away from any light poles, any trees, any electrical lines. And then at some point we were able to make it on the inside of this building. But the lightning really right now is what's really concerning. If you take a look at this tree right here, you can kind of see the wind is blowing, not as severe as it was earlier, but definitely something to be concerned about. Now, I just checked in with the Schaumburg police to find out, because, Schaumburg is one of those areas where it's partly Cook County and it's also partly DuPage County. I wanted to confirm with them which county we were actually in, and they told me we're actually physically right now in Cook County, but the conditions were definitely scary and frightening. And a lot of people on the inside of here were telling me they're tracking this storm. They're tracking it through some of their family members that live in various areas across the Chicagoland right now. And some people actually in their basements right now trying to make sure that they stay safe in case a tornado blows through. But just wanted to give you the visuals of what we had to endure. We had to run in for safety. It was really scary. I don't think Jacob, who's behind the camera, or even myself have ever experienced anything quite like that. And I sent you guys video of it just so you can see just how terrifying it was to be kind of in the middle of it all on this Friday night. I'll send it back to you. Hopefully, I don't know where we're going next, but just wanted to give you the visuals here on the ground in Schaumburg. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now.
All right, Tia, thank you for that. So right now, the latest that we're seeing, the updates that we're getting from the Weather Service saying that we are seeing some areas of rotation approaching Wilmette. It says while tornado is not immediately likely, this is an area that has our close attention, and we are paying close attention to that area of rotation. So right now, I do have our rotation detector on, and something that we have to keep a close eye on here. So I'm going to look at the radar. You see this notch right here? We're likely seeing some spin in the atmosphere from that. Looking at the storm relative velocity, as far as the rotation goes near Wilmette, I'm having honestly a hard time picking out exactly where that is. Rotation detector also not picking it up. Seeing some very slight signs near Evanston, but that's not necessarily matching up with where the center of that storm is. So obviously keeping a very close eye on the Wilmette area. This storm as a whole is going to be moving to the north and the east. The rotation detector, as we see it now, matches up really nicely with the leading edge of this storm. For those of you that are close to Highland Park, Lee Acres, we are seeing, looks like some signs of rotation there. I want to zoom things out and show you the scope of what's taking place here. So what's really grabbing our attention is this cell that's in northern Cook County, northeastern DuPage County. It's moving to the northeast, and it is expected to clip southeastern Lake County. For those of you in Lake County, you have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 10:15. Currently, we do not have a tornado warning in effect, but we're seeing so many signs of rotation. We've had funnel clouds reported. We've had a confirmed tornado from this particular cell that is now in northern Cook County and northeastern DuPage County. When this thing was moving through central DuPage County, we had a tornado on the ground from this. So fortunately, I am starting to see some signs of weakening, and it looks like we're still, of course, seeing the severe wind gusts coming out of this. Let's take a look at those winds, actually. If I look at the velocity, I can query some of these for you. So in Chicago even, we're seeing some pretty strong winds coming out of this storm system. If I want to take a query here, just east of Buffalo Grove, you see those higher returns. So this is reporting about 48 miles per hour, but this storm itself, we've had multiple reports of wind gusts as high as 60 to about 64 miles per hour. So even though radar returns here only showing about 48 miles per hour, we still really need to be on the lookout from coming out of this system here to the north, to the east. For those of you in Evanston, it's going to get windy. We're likely going to have those wind gusts potentially as high as about 60 miles per hour. Mark.
All right, since we are not under a current tornado warning at the moment, let me just take about a half a minute and kind of give you a tour right along this line that we've been experiencing here. Let's first of all take you all the way down to the very south part of our area, down towards Pontiac, DeWitt, towards Braidwood, just to the east of Streeter. And you can see there is still some severe weather just out of our forecast warning area, again, down just a little bit north of Bloomington. But this line still quite consequential, although no severe weather at the moment, down towards Shanahan and Morris, and it continues to move off to the east as well. We catch a little bit of a break in the immediate Joliet, Romeoville area, and then these are the storm systems, the storm cells that we have really been concerned about. First of all, a little guy there in Tinley Park that, again, may not be so little if you're in Tinley Park and you experience those heavy winds. And then the two systems that you were talking about, the storm cell that is basically moving right up the Stevenson and right down the Eisenhower, right towards downtown Chicago, heading towards the lake. And then the system that you were talking about earlier that has really been the focus of our attention, that's now drifting up towards the North Shore, just touching the lake right now. But this is going to be a system that has high winds all the way up to the beach, all the way up to the water's edge as it continues out towards Lake Michigan during the coming several minutes here.
So we did get a report out of DuPage County previously when we had that tornado warning with the confirmed tornado on the ground. We are getting a report out of Glen Ellen that a 10-inch hardwood tree was snapped in half on the west side of College DuPage campus. It looks like there's additional damage that's been reported, noted in a line to the northeast across Route 38 in Glen Ellen. Many small branches are down, some fences were knocked over. So that just goes to show that we are seeing some very strong winds with this. Right now, what you're seeing is video from earlier coming out of, was this coming out of Glen Ellen, DuPage County? Yes, so this was coming out of Winfield in DuPage County. You could see as this storm was moving through. And again, this is with the storm that was previously moving through DuPage County. That cell is now in northern Cook County. I do want to talk about some of our storm reports that we've been getting in. So I mentioned that we had a confirmed tornado on the ground in DuPage County. And zooming way in, you can see that just south of Wheaton, we had this report of a tornado that was on the ground 2 miles northeast of Warrenville. Again, this was in DuPage County, and this tracked up toward Glen Ellen as well as Lombard. And now that we're seeing some damage reports coming out of Glen Ellen, that just kind of goes to show that this was definitely on the ground, still causing some damage at this point. Zooming, we do have Elizabeth Matthews on the phone now to give us some updates. Hi, Elizabeth.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm on the Stevenson heading southwest near 294, and I tell you what, you keep talking about these winds, all these wind damage reports. I don't doubt it. It was white knuckle driving when you were kind of breaking through the front, right? So it always comes with those real strong winds and all that heavy rain, and it was maybe a quarter of a mile ahead of you. You could see the Stevenson is obviously very wet. We've had, with all these rains we've had a lot of flooding issues on 55, on 290. So if you're heading out on the roads tonight, just don't, perhaps. Take a lot of time. There was a lot of drivers, myself being one of them, using our flashers to make sure everyone's paying good attention. But it was really intense. There was a lot of lightning. I'm on the other side of LaGrange now. Let's see, I'm approaching county line as we speak, and it's much calmer now. The winds have really kind of died down. It's still raining, but the rain was coming down in sheets. I mean, it was hard to, your wipers can't keep up in a situation like this. So very hazardous, very dangerous, but it does seem like I've kind of broken through that line and things are starting to get a little calmer as we speak.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for that report. That really helps us out, too, to just know what's going on the ground. We see it from a computer standpoint here and the radar standpoint, but to have that confirmation of what you're seeing and you're feeling out on the ground is really helpful. All right, so taking a look at the radar, this is what we're dealing with right now. We have a severe thunderstorm warning for north and central Cook County. This does include the city of Chicago until 10 p.m. And also for southeastern Lake County, your severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 10:15. Right now, we're seeing very heavy rains beginning to move into the city of Chicago, the downtown area now experiencing this. This extends up toward the near north side, back towards Cicero. And one thing I want to point out in the Cicero area is I was looking at the storm relative velocity, seeing some signs that we could be seeing a little bit of rotation there. So within this cell, we are seeing some signs of weak rotation anyway, near Cicero and onto the northwest side of Chicago. So this is something that obviously we're going to keep a really close eye on. Bouncing back over to the radar, again, heavy downpours, lots of lightning with this. Flooding rains is definitely going to be a possibility. Low-lying areas, we've been experiencing these really heavy rains with a lot of the events that we've had recently. So if the ground feels pretty saturated in your yard or you're used to getting those unfortunate basement floods, this could certainly be one of those deals. But fortunately, this is moving a lot faster than a couple of the storm events that we've had over the past couple of weeks. So this thing is cruising at about 40 miles per hour. Zooming to the north now, extending from Lincolnwood toward Evanston, up toward Winnetka, toward Glencoe. We're now seeing the really heavy rain moving through. This is still a severe warm storm. We're concerned about winds as high as about 60 miles per hour. It looks like the Weather Service is now expiring the severe thunderstorm warning for Cook County, but it does appear that we could continue to see some gusty winds coming out of those in Cook County. So as high as about, I wouldn't be surprised, 45 to 55 miles per hour. We're likely just barely sub-severe. here. So again, northwest suburbs, we are experiencing this stronger cell. We are still experiencing the severe thunderstorm warning that is in southeastern DuPage County. Big picture look here. We still have storms that are taking place across the south suburbs too. You know, we really haven't been focusing too much on your storms because they haven't been severe, but regardless, you're getting really heavy rain, especially along the southern portions of Will County, coming out of Grundy County, places like Wilmington. You're seeing really heavy rain, Braidwood, Ritchie, and still with this, we're likely seeing at least some gusty winds. So let's take a look at those winds coming out of this. It doesn't appear to be quite as extreme as what we were seeing. Remember when I was showing you this earlier, we were seeing pinks. We were seeing almost some blues and greens that were showing up, some very bright colors suggesting really gusty winds. So fortunately for those of you that look to be in southern Will County, I'm really not seeing the extremely gusty wind potential like what we're seeing across the north and north suburbs. So stretching from Chicago up through Cook County, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain at this point. Again, you still have a severe thunderstorm warning for those of you in southeastern Lake County, but this thing is really almost kind of taken a trip to the east now. So it's heading off toward the lake. But for those of you in Winnetka, Evanston, still experiencing some gusty winds. Norma, still experiencing some of those gusty winds and heavy rains as well. Mark.
Let me run down a couple of the wind reports and some damage reports. I've told you about the 4- and 6-inch tree branch limbs that were down in the Lombard area, also around Naperville. But these are some of the wind gusts that have been reported. Plano, which was a little bit earlier, winds gusting to 64 miles per hour. Meanwhile, weather station's up their station, and it is located just north of Aurora, reporting wind gusts of up to 87 miles per hour. Now, again, that's not official, but certainly we've seen reports of winds very, very high in that range, certainly just shy of that range throughout the evening as this very strong system has pushed through. Numerous reports of 50 and 60 mile per hour winds as this front has gone through this. 58 mile per hour winds also associated with this at O'Hare. The O'Hare has experienced a ground stop this evening due to the weather. We had that tornado. Again, it was 2 miles northeast of Warrenville, DuPage County, that you were pointing out. That's really a great shot there that you're showing us there, Em. That was a particularly valuable shot here just over the last, 2 nights ago, when we actually saw the tornado basically form in that same general vicinity out towards the airport.
Yeah, so right now we are still seeing those heavy downpours, the lightning, the thunder out there at O'Hare. Certainly a different scene than what we were seeing 2 days ago, as you were just mentioning, when we were actually seeing the tornado developing right there at O'Hare. So fortunately, we're not dealing with that tonight. But right here that you're seeing behind me, I have this playing in a loop. So this is the velocity data. This gives us an idea of just how powerful the winds are coming. What I want you to pay attention to, you see these really bright returns stretching through DeKalb County, Kane, northern Kendall County, and then into Cook County. And it changes colors because when it's green, it's heading toward the radar. Red values indicate that you're moving away from the radar. So that's why it's changing colors. But it's really impressive to see just how powerful the winds were with this particular cell. Fortunately, we are seeing signs of this beginning to at least wind down a little bit. So it's falling apart. It's not looking like it's going to be that same structure that we were dealing with earlier. But of course, we did have that confirmed tornado in DuPage County. From my understanding, we do have Anthony Ponce now on the phone. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Emily. We are here in Westtown, just northwest of the loop right now. I'm sitting in my car. We were going to set up and try to do a live shot, but as I told our executive producer, we have lightning above us right now. And a short time ago, we were actually all set up to give a fun live report at the Windy City Smokeout. And I am told by my camera crew, I was a little bit ahead of them in beating the post-concert traffic. There were some people leaving, but somebody got over the PA at the Windy City Smokeout and said everyone needs to leave the venue immediately because the storm came pretty quickly on everybody. There were a couple of raindrops as I was leaving, but then it really hit hard, and they had to really evacuate thousands of people very, very quickly from right outside the United Center. I haven't seen much strong wind. There were a couple of gusts from what we're seeing right now, there are waves of rain and there's some lightning and the thunder that you mentioned, Emily. So right now we're just kind of hunkering down in our cars. There's a lot of rain above us and a lot of lightning strikes visible from where we're at right now. Traffic is moving, and I felt bad for a couple of post-concert pedestrians. They are just absolutely getting soaked here on Ogden, trying to make their way home or make their way into our car. But not a pleasant scene out here, Emily.
Yeah, so right now we are seeing those torrential downpours in downtown Chicago. So as you were mentioning, all those folks that were out and about tonight dealing with that and probably scrambling to try and stay dry. So we have very heavy rain coming down in Chicago and then another batch across northeastern Cook County. So right now we still do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lake County, the southeastern portion of Lake County until 10:15. But the worst of the storm is off to the south. So I feel comfortable saying for those of you that are in southeastern Lake County, yes, you still have that warning in effect, but the worst of the storm is past you. It's going to stay to your south, and it's also taking off now toward the lake. So as far as we're concerned right now, looking at the velocities, the strongest winds that we're experiencing are right along the lakefront between Chicago and Highland Park through Winnetka, down toward Evanston, North Park. If we query this to see just how high some of these winds are, now it's showing about 36 miles per hour. So this really goes to show you that this storm is beginning to weaken, because previously we were experiencing winds as high as about 70. And some of the returns that we were seeing, Mark, a couple hours ago across the west suburbs, we were getting values that were around 90 to 100 miles per hour up in the atmosphere. So fortunately, this is a really good sign.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, they say great minds think alike. I have the same map up I was about ready to show, and you can see right here that the strongest winds are indeed just moving offshore here this hour, where we're still seeing some 53 mile per hour winds that are out over the lake here this hour. So yeah, Cook County, you've been taken down, and I can't imagine anyone being out at the lake this hour, being on the lake, but the marine warning still continues out over the lake here, as you might imagine, especially with winds that are in excess of 50 miles per hour. It would be a bad night to be on Lake Michigan. We're looking at, again, still some very heavy downpours, as you mentioned earlier. These heavy downpours are going to continue as we go through the next hour or so. And don't be fooled, just because some of the winds are beginning to taper, just because we do not have any, perhaps, a current warning in your area, these heavy rains can produce limited visibility and cause dangerous conditions if you're on the road. We talked to Elizabeth Matthews earlier that we're talking about near zero visibility. You combine that with some hydroplaning, maybe a couple of flashes of lightning, which we had earlier, and you can reduce visibility down to near zero in a very quick hurry. So this storm system looks like it's losing, as you mentioned, a lot of its punch as it heads out over the lake, moves out over non-populated areas. But still, there are some threats to contend with as we kind of wind things down a little bit.
Yeah, so things are definitely winding down. This is great news here. The severe thunderstorm warning for southeastern Lake County that has now been expired. The severe thunderstorm watch, which was issued for all of northeastern Illinois previously until about 10 p.m. Of course, it is 10:05 now. That has just been expired as well. One thing that we were talking about earlier during our evening newscast at 4 and 5 was this threat potentially making its way into northwest Indiana. And here's what I'm going to say. So right now, we're, of course, keeping a very close eye on these storms that you see off to our south. In fact, we do have a severe thunderstorm that's well to our south in McLean County, Illinois. But this activity is all taking off toward the east. So the strongest storms we need to be concerned about are right here moving through Kankakee County. These almost kind of seem that they're getting their act together a little bit more. It's becoming a little more structured here with those heavy downpours, possibly some gustier winds too. Taking a look at those winds, I'll query that too to get an idea of just what we're talking about here in central Kankakee County. 34, 35 miles per hour with this. So fortunately, we are not seeing the severe wind gusts with this moving through Kankakee County. But regardless, this activity is still going to be making its way into northwest Indiana. We'll get rid of this warning here so you're not confused. It's not for us. We are now officially warning free. I do want to time this out, though, for those of you that are in northwest Indiana, possibly in Newton, Jasper counties. Looks like it's going to be free of our viewing area in about an hour. And again, this is not severe at this point. And since we're continuing to lose that daytime heating, I'm not too concerned about us seeing an uptick in this, especially since our wind speeds are only running about 30 to maybe 40 miles per hour with those wind gusts. So at this point, I feel pretty good that we're going to be in the safe zone from the severe thunderstorms as we go throughout the rest of this evening. So with that, we're going to wrap up our storm coverage for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, and we'll see you in the morning.